So here he is. He talks about getting older and how people become more spiritual as they get older. And he tries to deliver his own little anecdote to help drive home that point. Here we go.
Saying a little prayer at night. I find myself, I do that now. I didn't used to, but just when I put my head in the pillow at night, I say, man, what a day, you know. And I just have a 30-second conversation with God.
Yeah, so here's a guy who thinks he actually can speak to God, and he carves out a whole half a minute every day to talk to God for a half a minute. You spend more time talking to the cashier at Trader Joe's. You're gonna carve out 30 seconds to have your conversation with God because you're so freaking spiritual, Mitch.
Well, you know, but God's busy. He probably only has about 30 seconds for each of us. There's a lot of people on this planet.
You know what, now that I think about it, he's just being nice to God.
Yeah, I mean, it's time management, Jimmy. Come on.
Just being respectful of God's
He's probably
time.
just sitting there praying, God, please just let me unload a couple of million books. Please just let me unload a couple of million books.
Also, you know how like when you go in and talk to your boss and you overstay your welcome?
Yeah.
And then they're totally tuned out. You got to go in, you got to make your point.
Yep.
You start going 35, 40, 45 seconds with God, and God's already, he's like on the phone.
Yeah, he's tweeting.
Right.
So here is what he actually, so now, you correct me if I'm wrong, let's watch this together, and you tell me if he's not making this shit up as he goes along. This is what he claims he says to God every night, yet he can't really remember what it is. Here it is.
God, about did I do things right? Did I appreciate, you know, how lucky I am? I know so many people now who are sick, who are dying. Please just let me be appreciative. Let me show the right gratitude for getting what I'm getting. You know, I feel like a need to have that kind of little.
Yeah. He can't even remember I got better. Come on. This is what this guy, you really believe that's what he says? He's like, I say, please, God, let me be. There's other people who are sick. I'm not. And hey, this is what you say before you go?
Well, and you know, it's all good, healthy self-talk when you eliminate God from the conversation. You could be having this talk with yourself every night, which would probably improve your character a lot.
Yes.
Because you'd be saying, okay, did I not make the phone call? Did I not appreciate whatever? I'm going to do better tomorrow. But when you hand it over to some invisible being in the sky, self-responsibility goes out the window.
Can't remember the 30-second prayer to God you say every night. I remember the theme song to The Facts of Life. You know? Seems strange.
I like when he goes, did I show the right gratitude, God? Because I believe in God just enough to be petrified he's going to kill me.
Once again, the abusive father relationship.
So here he goes on, and he says something here. I don't even know what he means. Here's what he says about God.
That's what it's all about. It's the search. It's the journey. It's not the answer. If you could fit God in a box or a file, you wouldn't need to believe in him because you just go get him whenever you needed him.
I wish you could put your head in a freaking box. How about that? I have no idea. Do you know what that means?
Well, yeah, it's always the questions are more, when you're talking on a philosophical level, the questions are important because what you ask as a question says a lot about who you are and your character. That's the general thing about that. I don't know if he specifically is talking about that in that moment, but the God in the box thing, that's interesting. That, you know what, you could sell something like that on Amazon.
A God in a box, I would like to try to sell. So what he's saying is if there really were a God, you wouldn't need to pretend there was, and faith is believing what you already know isn't true. Wow, for a minute I thought he was pulling that right out of his ass.
Wow. This is reminding me a bit of the Barack Obama speech.
You could go get him whenever you needed him because you're just going to keep looking for him and you'll never find him, and that's what's so great about him.
You guys have glossed over the part about not putting God in a box, but putting God in a box or a file.
Or a file.
Or a file.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Or the iCloud.
Wow, that just seems right.
The iGod.
That just seems good organization.
Well, yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Let's
You know, have you been to the Container Store, Mitch?
Yeah. Did you see my desk?
Taxes, yeah. Car papers, the pets, right? Oh, here's the God file, right? Exactly.
So here we get to the meaning of life.
Oh, good.
This is the meaning of life. This guy reads back from Mitch's book, The Meaning of Life. How could you ever be happy and satisfied? And let's watch Mitch's answer.
Solved the secret of happiness.
Yeah.
I believe so, he responds. Be satisfied, the words you used a lot in the last two answers. Be grateful for what you have, the love you receive, and for what you have been given. Again, we think of that, we seem to be aware of it. The hardest thing for me all the time is living it. How do you draw it in and live it?
Yeah, Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that's the hard part. Right. That's the hard part. Living the thing and not being a dick. And yeah, that is the hard part. Here's what Mitch says back.
Find people who have less than you do. It'll be very easy.
Fine, yeah,
Boom,
that's
done.
what you do. That's what you do. You go hang out with some poor people, you start to feel better about yourself right away. It's like, you call that a suit? That's what you do. You're like, oh man, I feel, you think I'm kidding about this joke? This answer? That is what he means, and I'll prove it to you that's what he means. Play it.
No, find people who have less than you do. It'll be very easy. Sometimes we're always looking for people who have more than we do, and we're aspiring to be like them. And so even when we're given a lot, we measure ourselves against someone who then has more. When we're the junior vice president, we want to be the vice president. When we're the vice president, why can't we be the president? When we're the president, why can't we be the CEO? You're always looking up that ladder. If instead you turn around and look at people who would be so happy to be where you are, it's very easy to be grateful. It's just we're often looking in the wrong direction, that's all.
Go to a poor neighborhood. Drive around.
Drive through.
But don't stop the car or anything.
No. Keep the windows up.
It'll make you feel better. But I love when he goes, when you're trying to be, when you're vice president, you want to be president. When you want to be president, you want to be the CEO. What you should do when you're vice president is go down in the mailroom and piss on them for a couple of minutes. And then you'll feel great about yourself. I'm Mitch Albom, and this is my decisions for God.
What if you worked in the mailroom in the beginning, and like in the financial crisis, you lost your job, and now you're on food stamps, and your kids go to a really shitty school? Who do you go look for?
You got to you got to save your money, take a trip to Kenya.
Yeah.
Because they don't even have valet parking over there. How could you live without valet parking?
What if you're homeless?
Well,
who do you go looking for then?
What do you do?
Yeah, what do you do?
There's always a more irritating, shittier homeless person.
You walk by the prison going,
Maybe. Then if you're a prisoner, what do you...
I've got so many drugs stuffed up my ass. No one's going looking for
There
it.
are literally dozens of alleys I can sleep in tonight.
Take that.
I might find money on the ground today and go buy something.
So look, I don't know, because you and I haven't talked a lot about religion. Let me ask you a question. So what's your objection to this in general? Because is it like I got friends who are smart friends who have faith and go to church on Sundays and I, God,
And don't buy into all the BS.
Yeah, or do. I don't know, but they
Maybe
don't.
do
They
for
certainly don't. They
community or
certainly,
whatever.
it just certainly doesn't affect their politics. They're
Yeah.
progressive and smart
Right.
thinkers, and
Logical.
And they just like to go to church. It makes them
Right.
feel better.
So I like to make fun of people who like to go to church because it makes them feel better.
Yeah.
Because that makes me feel better to make fun of them because they're doing that.
So that's your church.
But I think
Yes.
But I think there's something more to it than that, because I don't think you just call up a clip of a guy who just did that. I think maybe it has to do with there's this added thing of I'm selling it. Like I'm
of course he's selling. Yes, he's a charlatan. It's not just that he believes it and he keeps it quiet,
Right.
but he now has a platform, and now he's trying to push that on people.
Right.
And it's to me, it's like yelling at the TV. I feel like other people have that experience. So when I'm watching this, I'm yelling at the TV, and I'm like, well, I have to share this with other people because this is so obvious bullshit.
And yet, I'm a person who studies Buddhist mindfulness meditation,
Yes.
and it changed my life, that I want to share it with people. And so I started teaching meditation. How is that different than what he's doing?
Because what he's doing is based on a fairy tale. What yours is based on actual seeking.
Okay.
And
I
actual
see.
experience. And what he's just doing is just believe in something that there is no faith to believe in.
Right.
So, and by the way, if you don't feel better hanging around with people who are sadder, sicker, and older, then you just don't appreciate the beauty of God's plan.
Wow, that'll sell some copies.
Understand where you are in the pecking order and who you're supposed to be pecking, and that's how you'll feel happiness, according to Mitch.
And yet, I heard it differently. I did hear that if you're always aspiring, you're never standing where you are and appreciating what you have. And one of the ways you appreciate what you have is understanding what you have compared to other people too.
Really?
Yes, I did hear it that way.
Okay.
But you know what? I have fuzziness in my brain.
So he's just the whole thing of people using fuzzy logic to try to prove that there's an invisible
that's
man
a
in
whole
the
different
sky.
thing. The whole invisible man
Yeah,
in the
that
sky
should,
thing. That's a whole other
You
issue.
should write a blurb for the paperback. I think it'd be good. Yeah.
Here's my blurb.
What's your blurb?
My blurb would be, that proves there's a God because he does nothing to prove he exists and makes you live your whole life rationalizing him with no evidence. If I were God, that's exactly what I would do.
Jimmy Dore, comedian.
All right, we got to go. We got to thank my guest, Kelly Carlin, for being with us. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
We didn't get to talk about the show. We'll have to have you back on and talk
okay,
about
yeah,
the
yeah,
show.
back.
Where can people find out about your next performance?
KellyCarlin.com.
KellyCarlin.com. Go see her new show. Go see her new show. I saw it last Saturday. It's hilarious. It's poignant. It's inspirational. I loved it. It's all about growing up as George Carlin's daughter. It was great. Ben, thank you for being with us. We'll see you next week on the Jimmy Dore Show.